Levantaré mi bandera, estando en mi país o estando allá afuera, porque para mí, mira, no existen fronteras. Yo levantaré mi bandera, wow. Levantaré mi bandera, estando en mi país o estando allá afuera, porque para mí, mira, no existen fronteras. No, no, y es que hay mucho sentimiento, lo grito al viento, de ser latino nunca me arrepiento. Lo digo desde la Suiza, centroamericana, rebota en Colombia y en Dominicana y yo.
Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of I Choose to Be Healthy. This is episode 5, and I am with my wellness coordinator, Ryan Munoz, and he is going to go ahead and take it away.
All right, good to be back, Rafael. I want to start off with just a check-in, and then we'll kind of do a review of what we discussed in the last session, and then kind of jump into our today's topics, and then we'll do kind of a prep for our final session with Izell, the registered dietitian. So I wanted to just kind of jump in with what is one positive or highlight that you can share with your nutrition and wellness journey so far?
I have a lot of energy. So, I mean, one of the coolest things about the way I've been eating is that I wake up feeling, I guess you can say, less heavy. The food that I've been eating has like increased the amount of attention span that I can have on the monitor. So I was like, sometimes you're in front of a computer and you get sleepy because, whatever you eat kind of like drags you down. But I mean, I think even my team has noticed that I've been getting a lot of things done faster. Also been giving myself more time to be able to relax for myself. So I think that's just one of the many benefits that I've been seeing from it, but it's like the most positive one. So that's kind of like a really big deal for me because I don't like, I didn't like before feeling this, I guess you can say this, like if you're carrying a car on your back every single time you're doing something, or if like you feel like you're being smothered just when you're sitting at the desk.
Being sluggish, having that mental fatigue or fog, not really able to work efficiently or effectively, right? It slows down over time. So definitely one of the better benefits of adjusting your diet, as well as the other changes that you've also incorporated or that we've spoken on, which kind of leads me to my next question. Is if you had to rate your discipline with the plan provided on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate it and why?
I'm going to say I've been pretty good at it. So with the exception of the app for the last couple of days because of our schedule, I've been probably at like an 8.5, probably like a good 8.5. And the only reason I have the 1.5 is because there are some times where you just like I was saying with the app, you don't, log in everything because of what you're dealing with, or like you'll turn around and you'll grab a coffee or something that's different from like being on the initial plan. The initial plan was very like straightforward and this is it. And then when you start going on your own, you have to start calculating which one which is the way that you do it based on, whatever schedule you have. But I think that the schedule has been kind of like the interference for the last couple of days. But overall, I think the discipline has helped me out big time from it because it's like kept me in check, which is something that I haven't had before.
Yeah. So when you're talking about schedule, you're referring to just like your schedule and being able to find time to log that information into the app?
Yeah, so I'll find myself like I'll go and I'll eat something and then I'll eat it before I can take a picture because I'm rushing over to the next thing. And so I find myself having to either type it up or something like that, or I don't have, the way to so that's been like the biggest struggle. It hasn't been like every day, but for instance, this past week has been really tough because we're just constantly moving. We're getting ready for like a huge press release and so forth. So we're going from one thing to another, and we've been kind of eating on the run for a lot of the things. So my son will bring me something, I'll eat it, and then I'll be like, oh crap, I forgot the damn login for the thing. So then I had Izell mention, like, what did you eat, for dinner this past time? And then I'll have to like type it up. And like, I know yesterday was terrible. Yesterday was terrible for logging in.
Yeah. And that's going to happen. We're going to have, some days, weeks, a season where, it's just, it's not doable. And again, that isn't meant to stress you out or be that additional thing. Really is an accountability measure. So if you're not using the app, what other methods of accountability do you have to kind of keep you in check, so to speak?
My family's been like really supportive. So like my son, if he wakes up late for whatever reason, he'll ask me, okay, did you eat something? What did you eat? And for the most part, when we go out to eat, I'll buy certain things that are different from like what we normally would buy. I've had my daughter, ask me, hey, are you supposed to eat that? Things like that. So, my family's been kind of like a really huge support beacon for that process, when I don't have the app or keeping track of everything.
That's great. That's really good. So I just wanted to kind of point out, so when you mention your daughter asking you, should you really be eating that? Does that trigger anything in you?
It was, well, the reason she asked it is because, like, for instance, we had a day that we ran really late. Mm-hmm. And so every meal just kind of went like off schedule, so to speak. And so at one point at night, I was sitting there eating the snack that we were going to eat. And then my daughter had came back from New Jersey and I asked her for a pan de bono. Now that entire day, we hadn't eaten anything because it was all off schedule. Yeah. So that was the one time where she asked me that, are you supposed to be eating that? And I'm like, look, I haven't had anything except for like the dinner and the breakfast that we had. And so from a calorie standpoint, I can definitely go in there. Now, if I had eaten everything I eaten all day and then I was swallowing pan de bonos, I would have felt like crap. But I knew at that point, if I didn't eat something that was like fiber or at least some type of thing, I was going to be starving. Okay.
So, I like the fact that you're kind of thinking about it. Those are those pauses or those checks and balances that, with the mindset that we want to have, right? It's like, okay, well, I kind of, I didn't have all these things, and you've done that before. We talked about that in a previous session where, hey, like I wanted to celebrate and have some ice cream. But I had everything else. So that's where it made it a little bit more, complicated. So it just sounds like you're learning to kind of incorporate, well, especially right now, since you're doing it on your own, because you do the plan as provided by Izell, our dietitian, and then you kind of go on your own to kind of practice while still being in the program to be able to kind of see how you do that on your own, right? Because we provide the meal plans, which you can be used over and over again, but obviously we want to incorporate different foods over time. And do you have that ability to make those judgment calls, that you're using the tips that you've been receiving? And it sounds like you are and have been, based on your, you sharing what you just shared.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest take from it. So for anybody who's going into this process, or who signs up for the 6-week plan, just understand that what you're doing is you're kind of changing your thought process as to how you handle situations that you were dealing with before. So if you're the type of person who just didn't have any self-control for a lot of the things that you were doing, going through this, and we're week 5, I think is what we're at. We've had 2 weeks where we did the menu as is, as the way Izell gave it. And then we've had 2 weeks where the menu has kind of been like, okay, now you're on your own. You have to now take these meals and use them. And at the same time, if you're going to substitute, you make them, better choices than what you had before. That's the part that's been really cool to see, is that you can take meals that you originally thought you couldn't do and kind of make a better decision. So instead of having like pernil with a bunch of rice and all kinds of stuff, you take pernil and you put like side vegetables on it instead. And, if you decide to have a little bit of rice, you make sure that you minimize it. Or when you go out to eat, you choose the more vegetable, protein oriented, as opposed to the very starchy, the one that's going to make you feel like you just, ate a hippo and then make you sleepy for the rest of the day. So that's been like a really awakening process for me, is to be able to kind of look at the day and go like, okay, I can't have that because I've already had this for the day. One of the reasons I had the pan de bono, by the way, is because I was supposed to that Saturday, by the recording that we had with Izell, was I was supposed to go to San Diego, and we were supposed to eat, the burger that we were supposed to have, the massive burger.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that. We didn't do that. So that Saturday, we spent a lot of time like eating, the normal meals. And so that pan de bono was like my version of that. And it actually worked out because of the fact that we didn't eat as consistently as possible during that Sunday.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we're just going to kind of go into a review and of what we discussed last, and it kind of really aligns with what we just talked about as far as shifting our mindset, right? Everything that we've been providing, especially what I provide, is giving that kind of coaching, in addition to those changes you're making on your plate with your foods, what you're putting into your body. So we understand that the changes go beyond nutrition. So it's not just the food. We kind of look at our lifestyle and break it up into these dimensions of, the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, the intellectual, aspect, the social side of things, the spiritual side of things, like all these things that make us up as a person. How are we achieving balance across that space? So that way we can continue to progress and move forward. Because when one area falters, it typically will have a domino effect in these other areas, whether we know it in that immediate moment or not, right? And that's when we fall into this rut and we don't know how we got there. Like, I was really good on this and I was being active in this area. And then now all of a sudden, I'm not eating right. I'm not being physically active. I'm not, doing the things that bring me joy. I'm not connecting with people as I was, and I don't know why, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that I want people to walk away from, after our program, is understanding these other pieces, and that it does take work. It's already, I know, difficult enough for a lot of us to consider just the food alone, but it's encouraging these other things that need to be changed as well in order for the change that we're making to be sustainable, right? And we're not saying, okay, hey, address it all at once, and that's a big mountain to climb. But if we can, break that up, as we talked about, with how we execute and being intentional with our approach is through objectives, right? I think that was one of the biggest things that we talked about in our last session was, not beating up ourselves, having some grace and, making smaller objectives that we can execute to reach that goal. So if it was, hey, originally I said I was going to work out every day or 3 days a week, decreasing that to 1 time per week just to start, get some momentum, build that confidence up again within ourselves, because that's typically the challenge that we face, is that we lose the confidence within ourselves to be able to execute, and we feel like we can't go about it alone. And we're saying that, yes, you can. And it is very appropriate to have a support system. We encourage that. But what happens when they're not there, right? That's why I always want to encourage individuals to think about that you have the capability. You now have some of these tools under your belt to be able to move this forward. So that's kind of the transition in preparation that we have to make when we start to titrate or exit out of services, is that we don't want it to be, well, after week 6, we kind of relapse, or, we for lack of better words, that everything that we learned, we no longer are applying, or because we didn't have that support system, we then, there's no accountability piece. So that's why we're asking these questions about how disciplined are you to that plan? How do you feel that the plan has worked for you, and what are you adopting? What have you learned? And it's going to be different for every individual coming through a program. We understand that the information we provide, typically people only retain 5% of the information that they, receive anyway. But what are those key things that, you yourself have found helpful, right? That's why we review as well. I want you to understand that we got to be intentional with our approach. We have to shift our mindset related to our goals. We have to execute with grace, and then seeking out support as needed. So if it's not going to come from us during the program, thereafter, it sounds like you have a really good support system within your family, and even with your colleagues at the Latin Babbler Show, just really providing that encouragement and acknowledging the changes and the positive things that they have seen. So it really is just about continuing to put one foot in front of the other to reach that goal, which we kind of talked about as well, as far as adjusting and having realistic expectations, and really, looking at it as a journey rather than like, okay, the outcome, right? It's like, well, when I, achieve this in November, or, December, after I had shifted. And it's like, well, we can always shift the line. And I think it's a matter of just, are you continuing the practices? Yeah. And as long as you continue the practices, you'll reach, even past, the possibilities or the limits that we place, right? We think, okay, well, this is where I'll be happy. After you reach that goal, sometimes it's, well, I'm not. And you reach a new one, right? So that's why we say, really looking at it as a journey, and really, I really like to emphasize that execute it with grace, because you can have a slip up and know that that's not going to throw you off your entire plan, right? You can have those things that you enjoy, not completely depriving yourself, because that doesn't do anything for your mental state or your emotional state as well, right? You got to do what makes you happy, not just for the sake of, well, I want to look a certain way or feel a certain way. I mean, it's all connected. So kind of just after reviewing that, I know, I provided a lot right now, but related to that, if you can kind of, just share your thoughts about our previous session. I know you kind of already touched on it, but with those pieces of information, those kind of mindset shifts, how do you kind of view that within yourself?
There's a lot I got to work on. So for instance, where I've been very good at sticking to has been kind of like the meal sections of it, or I've been kind of trying to figure out, okay, what's the healthier thing to put in my body when I'm on the run? What's the healthiest thing, if for whatever reason my son has to go and do something, and because he's normally the cook, what are the different avenues that I have to make sure that I stay at least somewhat within the plan, and I've been losing weight from it. So for me, it's been kind of essential to be able to kind of keep going on that path. Where I've been kind of, doing the struggling part with, it's not so much now a fear of doing anything or something like that. It's just the ability to do it when it comes to like some of the goal objectives with the physical side of it. So like last week I did kind of like what you were talking about before, where I had set these goals where I was going to go 3 to 4 times a week, to go work out. And I didn't get to do that because, for the most part, we're sedentary in here, where we're kind of working from morning to night. And instead of taking the time to do that, I would use the time for what we're trying to make up on, or whatever work we're doing on. So I did take advantage of the fact that, my daughter was like, hey, we should go, let's take the dogs for the walk. And so we went to the park, and I did, the trail that we have there. And even like today, I told my daughter we should go do something that's physically active later on in a day, whether it's go for a walk or go a hike, or just even do something that doesn't keep us sitting down the whole time. So those are the areas now that I've been kind of trying to sit down and say, okay, from a meals perspective, from a what I put inside myself perspective, I think I'm getting pretty good at figuring out what works for my body and what doesn't work for my body. And the way you see that, for people who don't know, is obviously trial and error. So we had one day where, the meals go from Monday through Friday. And then we had one day on Saturday where we didn't eat much, but we bought like a biggie bag. And I felt like crap. My body just could not take it. Like it felt like it was telling me, bro, what you put inside here just didn't work out for you. Like, where was that other stuff?
Yeah.
And so we were just like, okay, we can't, I told my son, I'm like, I haven't felt good in like the last day and a half. Like whatever we ate, my body just does not respond to it. And so we went, we made sure that didn't happen again. But even when we went to go get like Thai food yesterday, I chose the healthier option, which is what I sent Izell, which is again, like the vegetables, like the stir fry, So from that aspect, I've gotten to the point where I took what you mentioned, which is that even when we have these small things, it hasn't affected my overall, journey from it, because I've been able to kind of like pick up on it, figure it out, and kind of go back. And then with the physical activity, I basically just kind of like dialed back and kind of working my progress forward. So that way I didn't feel like I was letting myself down for not doing it on a daily basis. Yeah. And so that's where we're at. So, this week, like I bought some boxing gloves last week and I didn't get to use them. So I'm hoping that this week, today we'll probably do some walking. If we have time, probably go to the gym and just kind of like get on the treadmill. And, next Sunday I'll be posting again what my weight loss is. And that's another set of accountability that I've been able to kind of give myself. I'm accountable to the people who are constantly waiting for that result. You know what I'm saying? So that's been, it's not a pressure. Like I don't feel pressured with whatever the result is, because I feel like anything lost is better than nothing gained, or that something gained. You know what I'm saying? So I think any step in the forward direction is better than any step backwards. That's just been my mentality throughout this whole process since I joined, is that forward steps are always better than the backwards one. And we've been having more forward steps than the backwards ones. So, that's good.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've, had an increased awareness about, just your personal experience, which is so important.
Oh,
yeah. You can hear it from someone else, right? We can tell you all day, your family can tell you all day, hey, dad, or your friends can, I've noticed that but it has to come from within. And when you can start to see that within yourself and understand that you are capable, that's when it is now your journey. It's not, like you said, the pressure it's not on any, me anymore, because before it might have been from these external factors. Now it's this intrinsic, from within drive within me, that regardless of what these other individuals think or say, I am committed to myself and this process, which just speaks volumes to, where you're at and where you're going to go, even after our program is said and done. And, you can always return, if you needed that support. But, it's one of those things that, you want to see what, how far can I take this? And, understand that it really is like a me versus me, kind of mentality. And so the topic I kind of wanted to bring about today, and it really is kind of a segue into what we will kind of be touching on in our next session, is kind of just this idea of gratitude. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, well, I'm thankful for, everything I have and whatnot. But I think that when you look at the kind of the impact that practicing gratitude can have, even on this journey that you're on, it's that's that reflective process of being able to say, like, because we can celebrate victories in the moment, but then when we look at it over time, now we're saying, okay, well, the cumulative victories that I've had have brought me this far, and whether that be, by my own doing or through the support system that I've had with my family. So practicing gratitude is a skill. It's something that sometimes maybe it's like, well, why am I doing this? Right. Whether you're writing it down, whether you're saying it out loud, I always, kind of encourage, and there's a science behind it, right? It actually triggers our brain to release hormones, those happy hormones, those calming hormones that make us feel good, right? And it's not just about, kind of stroking your own ego. It really is about, kind of affirming yourself that, I am truly grateful for the opportunity that I have to do this. Every day that you wake up is an opportunity to, attack your day and whatever that may be, so yesterday I kind of fell off, today's a new day, right? We kind of wipe that clean. It is what it is, but today is a new opportunity and I'm grateful that I have that. So what am I going to do with it? Right. And sometimes it's not even a whole reset from a day. It could be the fact that you have the opportunity to pivot during the day, in the moment, to adapt and say, okay, you know what? This morning wasn't so great. I had I missed a meal, because that also impacts too, right? When we're talking about our schedule and, what Izell has also reinforced, that we don't want to go without a meal. Yeah. People think that, oh, well, I didn't have a meal and that's okay. Or I'll lose weight by not eating. And it's like quite the contrary, right? So even those things are, to kind of reinforce and consider, in those moments, okay, I get to start over midday, right? I have the opportunity to do that. And I'm grateful to be able to do that. And I'm grateful for all the information I've received. I'm grateful for the support system I have. And that keeps you going as well, right? And that's that kind of momentum and confidence that we're kind of talking about that comes through practices like this, right? So, have you done any like gratitude practices before? Like, I mean, I know a lot of times people think, oh, well, the only time I ever hear people talk about gratitude is around Thanksgiving, right? Where it's like, oh,
I'm actually a lot different than that. So like, even when, because I understand that people don't have to do anything for anybody unless they really want to. I mean, that's just an honest. We have that on our team. We have 17 members who work really hard, and they don't technically have to work that hard, but they do. And it's the same in my house. And so I always acknowledge when people, have done even just the smallest gesture to kind of support me in what I do. So like in my house, when my son's doing what he's doing, I always thank him. I'm like, look, I appreciate you for what you're doing. I know that you don't have to cook all these meals and so forth, but you decided to do so to help me out. And I do so with my daughter as well when she's helping me out in certain areas. And my team, like I constantly remind them, how thankful I am that they're even just a part of my life. So that's not an area that, for the most part, I have, I can't say not have an issue with, but that I'm very aware that I have to constantly be, thankful for the things, the people and the help and support that people have, provided to me. Because I've gotten some of the best DMs ever since like starting this process. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to see people who are struggling with the same issue, or see people who, are like, hey, is there a way to get the recipes? And I'm like, no, you have to sign up. Like, stop being lazy, go sign up. Like, but at the same time, they're like, yeah, but this is awesome. I love what you're doing. I've seen the videos. And the same with my family. Like, they look at me differently because, I've done this process before where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to do. But this is like the first time that I've been like very, very, stuck to the process, where like my mind change has been kind of blown out to a different way of doing things. And I can see, the difference in how they treat me because of it, from a standpoint of commitment, where they want to like support it more, as opposed to, like before when we were like, oh, okay, these are the things that we're doing. Like, you'll be eating a burger next week. You know what I'm saying? Because of how many times I went, back and forth. but they see that I'm like 100% in. And so they're 100% in. And I've always been grateful for the support that we kind of have for each other in this house, because it's one of those things that's been like really uplifting to see. So yeah, when it comes, even for you guys, man, like, look, this process is like, we got 2 more weeks left, I think. And I can't thank you guys enough for opening up my eyes to like a whole new way where I'm not like feeling, where I'm like, okay, this really sucks. Like this process is tough, like, and the process isn't easy. Like, for anybody who's going into this mindset change, it's not easy, especially when we have like really bad habits. You're constantly trying not to go back to them, even though your body and your mind and everything that you knew is kind of like trying to drag you in there. But just even these sessions where we're having now, where we're able to kind of have like these talks, as well as the guidance and the accountability, has been like a huge part of my life. And that's only a matter of a 5-week process, And so I can only imagine in long term, what that looks like. And if by July or December or whatever, I'm looking the way I want and feeling the way I want, that gratitude goes back to you guys, because you guys helped start the process. You know what I'm saying? It was you guys who gave me the kind of like the first foot in the door to a new life. And so that, nobody can be more grateful for that.
Well, we appreciate, really, we do, those kind words. And I just throw it back on you. You're doing the work. So that's where, you got to also take pride in the work that you've already done and the work that you're going to continue to do. And that's kind of where we wrap it up, and just trusting the process, right? It's we're going to have our ups and downs. We're going to, where it may not seem, sometimes worth it. It sounds like you got a good grip now on, kind of going away from that quick fix mentality, those fad diets, the diet culture that's been pushed out there for a lot of people. Again, our business model, our approach to supporting individuals is really, incrementally making those changes. We know that it's a process. We know we're not selling you this, hey, you're going to lose X amount of weight by the time that you're done with this 6 weeks, right? Or whatever package that you purchase. We're giving you, tools and information that are actually useful, that you can apply over the course of your life from here on out. And, because sometimes when you purchase these products, yeah, you might lose some weight, but you got to continue to purchase those products. And then you're putting things into your body that, are going to do more damage than good. Right. So, it really is, doing this in an educated and informed way, in a healthy way. And it is that slow grind a little bit, where maybe, again, we don't see it right away.
Yeah.
But over the course of time, and if you trust the process, you're going to see those results, and it's going to come in waves. Sometimes we're going to feel like we stagnate. Sometimes it's going to feel like, like you want to give up, right? And that's why it's so important to remember these things. And so if we can give you anything, I mean, you can always get a diet plan. You can always, eat healthier foods. But what sometimes people struggle with is that mindset, right? As you described, where it's like, oh, Rafael's going to have a burger next week, because that's what he said that last time and the last time.
Yeah.
Right? So now you described a complete shift, and where now you're like, okay, well, I'm committed. I'm 100% all in. And, but I'm also giving myself grace. I'm also understanding that it is a journey, and, that's the biggest thing. And I'm just happy to hear it, as far as, where you're at, in week 5 of, this program. So next week will be, as our 6th week, we'll be wrapping up. And that'll be a joint session with Izell and I, and she'll kind of, review the plan that was in place. Give you some additional tips on what to do thereafter. Like I said, you could always return for support, but the idea is that after 6 weeks, you're able to carry this forward. And if for whatever reason you have some doubt in that, or questions about how to do that, I just encourage you to kind of sit on that, reflect on that this week, and bring that to our next session. And we can kind of talk about what we can do from there. Do you have any particular questions or needs that you want me to follow up with, Izell, from now until next week? That way we're prepared for our next session.
I mean, for the most part, look, I'm trying, the whole purpose of this journey was to be able to kind of see people or to show people that this process can be started and that this process can be, even though it's challenging, it's something that's extremely rewarding at the end. And I think that, like you said, as we're on week 5, one of the things that we've noticed is like the shift in mentality. And that's what I want to try to get people to understand, is that shift of mentality. The being able to sit there and say, okay, you know what? We don't have time to cook today at the house. Well, what are some options that, we have? Because remember, in my house, it's difficult times 4. I mean, you have 4 different people. So, and 3 of them are not on a major diet or trying to lose, that excessive amount of weight that I'm trying to lose. So when somebody says, hey, what are we going to do for dinner today? 3 people have to choose one way, and I have to make sure I make a determination for whatever it is. And the whole process of doing this 6-week program is for people to be able to sit there and look and say, you know what, I made this decision and I'm okay with it. And this is what's good for me. It may not be what I want, but it's what I need. And, I've been big on even as a single parent, teaching that to my kids. It's not always what you want. It's what you need that, makes you make better decisions. And, going into next week, what goes beyond that is going to be very important. Some of these tips that you guys are going to offer and so forth, because, we won't have, for some people who decide not to continue the 6 weeks or like that, you won't have that unless you specifically go back to it. And you now have to start making decisions on your own with the surrounding members that you have in your family and friends. And are you making the right decisions when you go out with your friends or when you go out with your family and this and that? So I think that it's going to be very important for me next week to see what tips you guys have to offer for like the ongoing. Okay. And, I look forward to that because, once it's kind of like parenting, once we kind of, remove ourselves from the process of the household, so to speak, we now have to go out in the real world and figure out what it is that works for us, and those decisions will make or break what we're trying to do from a goal standpoint. Yeah.
It's time for Raphael to fly out of the nest.
Yeah, I'm big, so flying might not be a good idea, because when I land, it'll be reported on Twitter. But aside from that, yeah, I'm eager because, once you get your certification for the, the exercising and the routines, then we'll be, I'll be tapping into that to work on that route, especially since, we've built a relationship where I can I can see you understand my physical issues, my physical limitations. So we'll be working on things that are, kind of going to help me better than me just going out there and trying anything that's going to, create issues. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. This has been a really, really cool process.
All right. So with that said, we're all done for today. I'll be sure to touch base with Izell regarding our session today. And like I said, we'll be wrapping up next week at our normal time.
Okay, awesome. For those of you who are listening to this for the very first time, make sure you catch the other 4 episodes that touches on everything from the actual introduction all the way through the meal plans adjustments, mental awareness as far as what we've been doing through there. Catch these. You can catch them on YouTube. Go to www.latinbabbler.com. Catch us on social media, at Latin Babbler Show. That's pretty much everywhere. We've even we're on Pinterest now. So, and then Ryan, if they want to follow the business and find out the 6-week plan, where would they go?
So remember, it's at Nutrizzy, Nutr.izzy. There you'll be able to find our links. It's Nutrizzy Nutrition and Wellness LLC.com. There we have a list of course packages that we have to offer. Don't be shy. Again, you can sign up for a free 15-minute consult, no obligation to sign up. There in that consult, we'll be able to kind of give you some insight as to how we can support you in your journey.
Awesome. So guys, make sure you follow us both. Make sure you sign up for the program. If you don't know how to sign up for the program, on www.latinbabbler.com, there are images everywhere that you can actually click, and it'll take you right to their website. And we will see you guys next week.
Desde Nicaragua hasta Costa Rica, con esta canción todo mundo se identifica. Llamen a los chilenos y a los cubanos, llamen a Puerto Rico y a los mexicanos, que ya se armó la rumba. Desde Panamá hasta Ecuador, vámonos a Perú y luego hasta Salvador. Que se escuche en Brasil y Argentina. Yo quiero un grito de mi gente latina y levantaré mi bandera, estando en mi país o estando allá afuera, porque para mí, mira, no existen fronteras. Yo levantaré mi bandera.